We are finally down to the top 5, guys, and my number 5 film on my list is Midnight in Paris. I am not a Woody Allen fan. I'm definitely, I know he's hit or miss with a lot of people, but this movie was just so wonderfully written and directed by this guy. He is definitely a film legend. Much like Spielberg and every other director you can name out there, Martin Scorsese. This guy's up there with those guys because he's had a lot of technically bad films, but he's also had some of those landmark films that got his name out there. And this is one of his best films. From the couple that I've seen, this is definitely the best one I can think of. This is my favorite one. I've only seen a handful of his movies, and as I said, I'm not a fan, but this movie was just so, it was very light in a way. I don't know how to explain this feeling I had while watching it. It was just, it gave a smile on my face just to watch this film.
I mean, this is unbelievable. There's no city like this in the world.
You're in love with a fantasy.
I'm in love with you.
And how a struggling writer, played by Owen Wilson, who ends up going to Paris with his fiancée, played by Rachel McAdams, and her parents in the film. They go to Paris, and he's really just disgruntled. He just really doesn't know how to handle when the process he's trying to get through in order to write his novel. But lo and behold, one day he just decides to stroll Paris at night, midnight to be exact, and then he ends up time traveling somehow. They never explain it, which kind of just irked me just a little bit, but just the wonder of it all. Just time traveling, just doing it. Bam, just doing it.
I'll probably end up going on another little hike tonight.
And enjoying yourself back in the day where all these great writers and artists were back then. Anyone from Ernest Hemingway he ends up running into, Scott Fitzgerald, and great artists such as Matisse or Picasso and just so many more people. And it's just an awe and wonder that he feels. And you sense that innocence that Owen Wilson has with his character, just running into these people and hanging out and partying with these people back then. One of Picasso's mistresses, played by Marion Cotillard, he ends up falling in love with this girl. And then there's a whole love triangle situation going between Rachel McAdams and her. And he soon loses sight of what's reality and what really, or where does he really belong.
Why are you so dressed up?
I was just doing a little writing.
You dress up and put on cologne to write?
Because you know how I think better in the shower and I get the positive ions going in there?
By the end of the film, he does figure out things. He does realize what he needs to do and how he should live his life and how to get his novel written out and so on and so forth. But overall, within all that, the life lessons and all that stuff, it is just such a light and comically good romantic comedy.
I'm in a very perplexing situation.
I don't know how much to really explain what I felt while watching this, but as an artist myself, I feel that I appreciate this. For those of you who are literature people, artists, you'll definitely appreciate the limelight of Paris that is shown by Woody Allen's direction, as well as just the character of Owen Wilson here. Overall, the cast was great, and I love this movie. It's a shame I didn't make myself see this when it came out last summer, but rented it on DVD, and I fell in love with this movie. Man, Ryan Gosling looking like a badass. He went from the fucking guy we all wish we were to another guy we all wish we were. Lucky son of a bitch and his good looks. Anyways, if you haven't understood what I'm going with this, my number 4 film is Drive, starring Ryan Gosling and a whole slew of other people, including Albert Brooks as a surprisingly very intimidating bad guy. The premise just hooked me. When I heard about this, it was in the limited release circuits, and then when it finally got a wider release, I wanted to see this movie. The story of a stuntman driver by day who moonlights as a getaway driver by night. That is just such a simple and awesome premise. I had to see this. I saw it. This was awesome. And it is obviously one of the best movies of the year because it's just one of the most different experiences in the movie theater anyone could have had.
If I drive for you,
you give me a time and a place. I give you a 5-minute window.
Anything happens in that 5 minutes and I'm yours, no matter what. I don't sit in while you're running it down. I don't carry a gun. I drive.
Mainly because, not to be gushing about this film, but it wasn't cliched, and the fact is you expected something to happen, but it didn't. It didn't follow formulaic movie action cliches. It was just awesome for the fact is that you barely knew anything about Ryan Gosling's character, let alone his name, and you felt this tension that didn't go away. You felt that Ryan Gosling could kick the shit out of anybody, anytime throughout this film. Relationships he has with his mentor, Bryan Cranston, in the film, or his love interest, played by Carey Mulligan, all of them did great, and even with little to no dialogue, anything from just staring at each other, there was just those somber moments that happened here where it made sense, surprisingly.
So you just moved to LA?
No, I've been here for a while.
What do you do?
I drive for movies.
Is that dangerous?
It's only part-time.
You put this kid behind the wheel. There's nothing he can't do.
Kid, I want you to meet Mr. Bernie Rose.
My hands are a little dirty.
So am I.
I felt that a lot of people did feel divided about this film. Number one, it's really slow, but when it kicks off, the action, it kicks off. Many people, from what I understood last year when it was released, that many people complained about its art house style. And yes, I'm not a fan of those either, but this was just, it just walked that fine line enough to where I enjoyed it. And of course, let's not forget that soundtrack.
Do you remember this?
No.
Any dreams you have or plans for your future, I think you're gonna have to put that on hold. For the rest of your life, you're gonna be looking over your shoulder.
Well, it was just intense, a very great drama, and it had great action when it had great action. And I appreciated the art house style of it all. I wasn't a big fan of that either, but just Ryan Gosling's performance definitely stole the show here. Albert Brooks was great, and just the soundtrack, as I said, overall great film. Number 3 on my list is Horrible Bosses. This has to be one of the best movies of the year, mainly because I'm a sucker for comedies. As you can probably tell, a lot of these movies in my list are dramedies, comedies, and just either that or at least have some sort of good sense of humor in there somewhere. About maybe half of them, I think. Anyways, this movie, I just saw the trailer and I wanted to see this movie. I saw it at a midnight screening. I loved this movie. You see, many people obviously can relate out there that they've had a crappy boss and they wish something like this, what happened in this film could happen to them in real life. But the main gist of this film is, of course, on the focus of Jason Bateman, Charlie Day, and Jason Sudeikis, who are just 3 buds, you know, having some very crappy jobs and having some very, very horrible bosses that just torment them. And soon enough, they all just hypothetically one day talk about, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we actually killed our bosses? Yeah, but I don't know if we should do that for real. But eventually in the film, they obviously do just that, with a little help from Jamie Foxx as their murder consultant.
You would have to admit our lives would be easier if our bosses weren't alive.
You can fire Professor Xavier.
You mean Hank?
Creeps me out, rolling around all day in a special little secret chair.
I don't care how bad our bosses are. We're not murderers.
Oh, Dale, you know that I like to fool around.
Oh.
This is bad. Bad, bad, bad.
You know what? That's crossing the line. I'm in.
Okay, so let's do this.
We gotta hire a professional.
I'm gonna be your murder consultant.
They end up trying to kill each other's bosses. And as for the bosses themselves, Kevin Spacey, who is just one asshole of a douchebag in this film, but you can tell he was having a lot of fun with his role. Colin Farrell, definitely a really different character for him, as obviously from the balding comb-over crap, but just such a different character for him. He is just one sleazy a-hole in this movie. Just full of himself, but it was just such a unique character for him to do. And then, of course, you got Jennifer Aniston, who's definitely...
See if this thing's working. Oh! I'm sorry. I'm a squirter, Dale.
I don't see the problem with her still. But anyways, this was just such a different movie, and the fact is you got some great actors who have such great comedic talent, as well as just great character actor ability here. And I love the chemistry between Bateman, Day, and Sudeikis. I love their chemistry. I love the bosses. I loved everything about this film. The pacing of it all, the comedy, the funny lines that you definitely will be quoting for quite some time.
I can crush you anytime I want.
You know there ain't no rest for the wicked. Money don't grow on trees.
You can explain why you went 61 in a 25 zone.
I was drag racing.
In a Prius.
I don't win a lot.
Ain't no rest for the wicked until we close our eyes for good.
It's just such a funny film to me. I don't know. The replay value definitely is up there. I definitely enjoy it. I have it on Blu-ray. I've watched it countless times already. And that's definitely a plus with comedies, when you can watch them over and over again and still have a good time. Numero dos on my list, guys, is... Yes, I know. It's another independent film, and it's another film I did not see, but I had my eye on it since the second I heard about it. Last year, I think around April it was released, somewhere around there. Anyways, the movie is Super, starring Rainn Wilson and Ellen Page, Liv Tyler, and Kevin Bacon. This has to be one of the best independent films I could ever watch, mainly because this is the kick-ass of independent films, and if that doesn't already intrigue you, I don't know what will. Rainn Wilson here, he plays a character named Frank, who is just a very innocent guy. You know, he works at a diner, he's just a short order cook, and he fell in love with a waitress played by Liv Tyler, who soon becomes his wife. But his wife was a recovering drug addict, and soon enough she falls for Kevin Bacon, a drug dealer.
Excuse me, have you seen my wife?
I don't think she wants to see you anymore.
What? Sarah!
Don't touch my car again. I'm going. That's not the kind of touching I meant.
Jock, he stole my wife. Can you arrest him?
Sometimes it's better just to accept these things.
Rainn Wilson there doesn't really take light of that. Obviously, any man wouldn't be too happy that someone took off with their wife. But he feels that Bacon there stole her from him. So he ends up on a quest to figure out what to do, how to handle this, and he doesn't know. He's just a very naive person, and he really falls apart. And he feels that, by the graces of God, he feels that he is chosen to fight crime. With all that, as crazy as that premise sounds, he soon finds help with Ellen Page, who is a comic book nerd in this film, and her performance is also really great, and very naive and just excitable, the sidekick character, if you will. And she helps him out trying to figure out the necessities of a superhero.
Batman, batarang, pipe bombs, utility belt.
Utility belt.
Green Arrow has a bow and arrow.
Okay.
Why do you need all those?
I'm making up my own superhero. He needs a weapon. That'll do.
Cool.
He soon becomes the Crimson Bolt, and he fights crime, big or small, whether it be cutting in line to something as big as drugs and violence.
All it takes to be a superhero is the choice to fight evil. Shut up, crime.
Don't steal! Don't deal drugs! Don't molest kids!
Soon he ends up having his main goal of trying to get his wife back. And that is why he ends up taking on this whole persona, and he becomes a completely different character as well. That is where I give some major props to Rainn Wilson here. He goes from this very innocent but sad kind of guy to this very angry and just very abrupt character, this Crimson Bolt character. And it is just so well acted for such a small film. Ellen Page, as I said, her performance is great as a plucky sidekick character, Bolty.
Your kid's sidekick. Ta-da! How do I look?
That's inappropriate.
It just goes off from here, and I gotta say this. This is a violent and vulgar film. I was shocked too on how bloody and insane this movie got. The gunfire, the action scenes. Director James Gunn did a great job here.
This is not about good and evil. This is about she loved me more because I am interesting.
Yeah.
It has to be one of the best independent films of the year for just that. Just the small production of it all. It's just such an explosive action dramedy type film. Bottom line, guys, is if you enjoyed Kick-Ass, you should definitely give this film a shot. We are down to number 1 on my list, guys. The best 2011 film. Drum roll, please. We still don't have a drum roll. son of a bitch. The movie is 50-50, but it's still not getting the recognition it deserved. And to me, I relate to this film, and this is probably the main reason why, obviously, it is the #1 film in my book for 2011, because I have been in this situation before. I have had family members who have sadly passed on because of this disease. Now, I said that in my previous review for this film, but I can say this. It is a very heart-wrenching situation to be in. And this movie showed both sides. Joseph Gordon-Levitt here, who plays just a very average and everyday guy, and bam, gets stricken with this disease known as cancer. And then he just breaks down and just goes through his emotions and etc., etc. And that right there just showed to me that this has to be his best performance of his career thus far.
A tumor? Yes. Me? Yes.
that doesn't make any sense, though. I mean, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I recycle.
How do you feel right now?
Fine. Yeah, I can't remember being so calm in a long time.
Would you describe what you're feeling as a kind of numbness?
I'll describe it as fine.
You're young. Young people beat cancer all the time. Every celebrity beats cancer. Tom Green, guy from Dexter, Lance Armstrong, he keeps getting it.
I'm moving in. No, Mom, no.
I'm your mother, Adam.
But exactly.
You want to make a room?
Oh, thanks, I'm all right.
There's weed in them.
To be able to portray all those various emotions that happen when someone is diagnosed with cancer. And then you've got people on the other side, which is where I've been. The family and friends of this person who gets diagnosed with cancer. Seth Rogen here, this proved he can act. He can be a nice guy and not so much of just a douche. He can be funny and vulgar, but very caring and understanding at the same time. Overall, this movie was pitch perfect. It had the super bad comedy mixed with a very dark and very dreary just perspective of just this situation, such as dealing with cancer, the drama of it all. I don't know. It just portrayed both sides so well. And you have a great performance from Angelica Houston as Joseph Gordon-Levitt's overbearing mother. You have a very bitchy girlfriend played by Bryce Dallas Howard. And of course you got Anna Kendrick, who soon becomes the love interest later on in the film, but who is originally Joseph Gordon-Levitt's therapist in the beginning of this film. The relationship just blossoms by the end, and it's great and genuine. It's nice.
Probably having a nervous breakdown.
What are your chances?
It said 50-50.
It's not that bad. If you were a casino game, you'd have the best odds.
It's what everybody's been saying. You'll feel better and don't worry and this is all fine, and like, it's not.
You can't change your situation. The only thing that you can change is how you choose to deal with that.
All praise goes to just the writers of the script. I believe the writer of this film was also who went through the same scenario. Seth Rogen's friend who went through this very situation this whole movie's based on. Everything about this film is just so good. It's funny, it is smart, it is very touching and very emotionally driven. This movie just defined on how to deal with such sensitive subjects in a good and positive outlook kind of way. This movie was just so amazingly done. Direction, writing, and just acting, everything across the board. There is not a single thing I honestly could find wrong with this movie. And to be honest, I'm going to tell y'all, I cried in this movie film. I am telling y'all right now, I am real with y'all. And I cried because this just gave me such a realistic portrayal of what happens in this whole situation. Where I've been through it, and I've seen, just seeing this reminded me, not in a bad way, but it reminded me of all those situations I've been through. But it was done with such passion and realistic and very touching kind of ways to where I appreciate this film. I am glad there's a film like this out there because people, honestly, people probably didn't know how this really goes down, how people deal with this. I am glad this film exists. I am glad it just was funny and it was very touching and genuine. I am just so happy this film exists. That's the bottom line. I'm going to say that. I am glad this is a movie that should exist.
You really think that a girl's gonna go for me just because I have cancer?
For the millionth time, yes!
Great song.
Totally.
I have cancer.
I was wrong. I was wrong.
Nice to meet you.
It was weird. It's weird like that. It's not. It doesn't sound cool.
No.
I'm just gonna say this, guys, to leave you with this. It is a great film, and it should be watched. It is a tough thing to sit through in some cases, especially with just, you know, people just get scared of the word cancer, and I understand that. Some people didn't see this film because of that. But I will say this. This movie, it just opened my eyes. It made me realize how good I have it. And even though if I've learned this lesson countless of times, it's nice to see that a movie, as I said, exists that can give me that lesson in return every time I watch it. It is a great film, guys, and all these films that I've talked about are great films. I can tell you they're all enjoyable in my perspective, in my opinion. Check them out if you wish. Don't forget to comment below and what you think about the films, what you think about my list. If you disagree with me, fine, leave some constructive comments. It's a new year.